What's going on, H2O Army? Justin from H2O Plants, and today we're going to be discussing what is happening there. Stay tuned. So what's up, guys? One of the most common questions I get is, my plant is melting, help me. What do I do? It's either got browning leaves or turning translucent leaves, a lot like this plant here. So let's go over this and understand what's happening here. So many places will sell you plants that are grown immersed. I also sell some plants that are grown immersed, like Anubis, because Anubis is very easy to bounce back from being introduced into a submerged growth state. If you don't know the difference between immersed and submerged, there's a full video that I did on it, daily trim episode, probably like 8 or 9, somewhere around there. I would say I'll throw a link in the description and on the screen. You go over there, check it out if you want to understand it. But basically, you have two things that happen. So you have a plant that's grown immersed, a lot like this one looks. Okay, these big broad leaves here, this is a broadleaf sage, and that is its immersed leaves there. These little tiny ones down here, or I wouldn't say they're tiny, but they're smaller, and they don't have that rounded tip to them, like this one right here. This one in particular is a fully submerged. This is like partially submerged. It must have, this must have been the leaf that I put up while it was introduced into my aquarium. But basically, when I get these plants in, I put them in my tanks right away. I let them I allow them to start adjusting. I know which plants will adjust faster than others. So like broadleaf sage is pretty much ready to go. The moment I stick it in my tank, by the time it ships out, it should have 1 to 2 new leaves on it, which will be completely submerged, in which case the plant will survive. Other plants like Anubis will be 100% immersed grown, but those won't have really any melting whatsoever, so long as your tank has the right conditions, which is very minimal for what it needs. But what do you do when you get a plant like this, or you have a plant like this with all of its leaves starting to melt? So say you got this plant in, and you could have bought it anywhere. A lot of the chain stores, they sell all their plants grown immersed, not even partially transitioned. So odds are this is going to happen to you. So this was a pygmy chain sword, and you see these leaves were nice and big and tall, and they're all brown and mushy now. But if you look really close, there's a little green, and that's what we're looking for. When you see the green, I wouldn't uproot this. I did just so I could show you guys closely, but I would pluck off all these leaves, all the browning old leaves down at the base of the plant. Anything that doesn't look secure or browning or melting, like even these two leaves right here, these are green, but they're like melting down at the bottom. So all that's garbage. Oop, and I plucked an extra leaf off there, but that's okay. So now you're left with this, and you're saying, well, that's a pitiful plant right there. Believe it or not, this plant is completely healthy and ready to go in your aquarium. These leaves will have a better time transitioning into an aquarium than all these big leaves will. These big leaves are going to melt regardless, no matter what you do, no matter what type of tank conditions, unless they're grown above water, unless you put this in like a little vase, right, and have just the roots in water and have the leaves above, those are going to melt, no matter what you do. Doesn't matter who you are, that's going to happen. This plant is 100% more healthy than this plant is. The reason being is those leaves are completely converted. This does have a converted leaf, so this is ready to go in a tank. This is good. But this is better. And it may not make much sense, but believe me, this is a better plant than this one. Let me show you one other kind of example. Oh, and I guess let me just touch on this. So if you were to get this dwarf sage in, let's just say this was the plant that you got for me. If you see 1 or 2 new leaves, that's good. That means you could pluck all these old leaves, and I'm not afraid to do this because I know that this plant is perfectly fine. I'll pluck all the older leaves that I know are gonna melt. So I'm gonna leave these 4, and you would want to leave at least 3 to 4 leaves at minimum. So even if you leave older leaves, that's fine. But you could pluck all those older leaves that are there like the oldest ones, the biggest ones, and this is ready to go. You won't have melting in your tank. It's going to put up new leaves, and it won't have to worry about consuming those old leaves or the old nutrients in those leaves, and this is going to grow better. So that's what you want to do when you get a plant that's grown immersed. Either stick it in your tank, wait for new leaves, or if it already has new leaves that are already partially submerged, grown, and I mean, if you can't tell the difference, best thing is stick it in your tank, leave it there for a couple, probably like a week or two. When you see new leaves, you could rip it up out or just pluck the leaves in the tank, and this is good to go. So these are going to go back in there. Let me show you the other example that I have. If you guys are enjoying this video, make sure you click that subscribe button, as well as like our page on Facebook if you're watching it there. And also, smash that like button and leave a comment below and let me know what you guys want to see in a future video. Okay, let's take a look at some Amazon swords. Which is the completely submerged grown? Can you tell? If you couldn't, this one right here on the left is. You could tell that from a couple different ways. One, the leaves, and this isn't true for all submerged plants, but you could tell that they are a little bit more translucent than these. These are really not translucent at all. And that means that these are fully converted. They're a lot different shape. You could see that these are very broad and tall. These are still tall, but very narrow. So that's a clear indication that this is completely submerged grown, while this still is immersed grown. There are 2 new leaves on, or maybe 3 new leaves on here. These 3 in the center that you could see are good. But these older leaves, same thing with the other plants that I just showed you, these are all going to melt. So the best thing to do is remove them. So what you're going to do is you just pluck it off right at the base. And this is true for any sort of rosette plant, like an Amazon sword, or a crypt, or a jungle val, anything like that. Any type of sage plant. So now you got 1, 2, 3, you got 4 good leaves of growth, and you have these 2 older leaves that look like they'll probably make it. They might melt off, but yeah, this is good to go now. That's fully pruned and good. This is 100% good. All these leaves are well and healthy and perfectly fine for tank. Now you're saying, well, why do you have both? Which do you sell? Well, here's the thing. I'm selling both of these pretty much because this one's been in the tank a lot longer. This was probably one that I had that I didn't realize that I had in there. It's just been growing and putting up all these new leaves, and I probably pruned this one yesterday. So that one's been in there a while, and this was one of the most recent ones that I had, and that's why it still had some old growth on it. So I like to trim off a lot of the old leaves before I even send them out to you. But if a plant is looking like it could really use those old leaves for right now, and you know it'll probably transition better in your tank, and I just do that based on looking at it. I leave them on there, and I suggest when you first get a plant and you want to leave the leaves on there, don't take them off right away. Put them in your tank, let them start to adjust, mellow out, and then within a couple days to a week or two, you could start removing older leaves as they are starting to brown, yellow, melt. But don't be worried if you see browning or yellowing or melting on any old leaf, even if it was grown 100% submerged. That's just, it's used to one type of tank condition, and now the new growth is what you're really worried about. If you see new growth, so if you saw these new leaves popping up here in the middle, let's say they were really tiny, that's good. If you don't see any new growth and all the leaves are melting, that's bad, but I wouldn't move it. Leave it where it was, don't adjust it, leave it be, and eventually it'll most likely put up a new leaf as long as you have the right tank conditions. So, best thing to do if your plant is melting, leave it alone, let it adjust. After it adjusts, and you see a new leaf or so, start removing the old leaves. Leave a couple leaves on it, and you'll be fine. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if it helped you out. Share as always. Subscribe. Hit that notification bell and all that good stuff. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, all that. Leave a comment below of what you would like to see next, and I will see you guys on the next video. Later.